Imagine being completely broke, doing any odd job just to survive, and one day before the most important interview of your life, you simply throw up on a millionaire's suit. Obviously, it wasn't just any millionaire, but the CEO of the company you were hoping to enter in that dream job. Clearly, at that moment, you would have ruined any chance of getting in, right? Wrong. Because after the interview, the guy calls you, not to hire you, but to make a deal, to be his fake girlfriend for 3 months. Enough money to fix your life and pay off your debts. But the situation isn't all sunshine and rainbows, because besides being rich, the CEO is also ridiculously handsome, and it becomes harder and harder not to fall for his provocations. And then there's a kiss that definitely wasn't part of the plan. When fake starts to feel real, someone always ends up falling in love, and maybe getting hurt. And so this story begins with our protagonist accepting an unlikely deal without reading the fine print. We begin our story with a job interview in a large and fancy company. One of the suited men praises Danny's resume, our protagonist. Another man asks if she has any previous experience. She replies that she has worked part-time jobs since childhood, and that is why her skills and sense of duty are unmatched. Unexpectedly, one of the interviewers asks what Danny would do if someone threw up on her. That question makes the girl very uncomfortable. Danny, with a look that clearly shows she did not like what she saw and heard, wonders why that smiling guy is sitting there in front of her. However, there is a flashback, and we go back one day in the story, where we see the protagonist riding her bicycle through the city. She takes out her phone to check a message reminding her about her job interview scheduled for the next day at 10 in the morning. The girl can't believe the appointment is already tomorrow, and she knows that this time she won't be able to run away. She lets out a sigh and says she thinks she will head back earlier today. Danny pauses, thinks for a moment, and decides she will make a few more deliveries, because she doesn't know what will happen tomorrow. Right behind her, a female voice in the background shouts for a taxi to stop. Danny looks back and discovers that the shout came from a young woman who had just left her belongings inside the taxi. Determined, the cyclist says, she will go after the car. Go for it, girl. She asks the lady to wait for her right there. Danny would have to be Lightning McQueen himself to catch a car with just her bicycle. The protagonist follows the vehicle while the driver drives along humming, completely unaware of anything. Danny shouts desperately for the driver to return the lady's belongings. Nearby, Junkang is talking on the phone with Jamie, who asks him if his mother isn't really a sweetheart. He replies that she is, and says it is somewhat embarrassing to be pushed into a position he has been fighting for years. His friend on the phone comments that it is indeed a difficult situation. Jun asks if Jamie couldn't do something to stop his mother, but his friend answers that he would get scolded for taking responsibility, and admits that she has already talked to him other times. His friend reveals that he warned his mother there is a marriage proposal demand involving his brother. The young man retorts that it doesn't matter which of them will be the first to do it. While he says he truly doesn't care about that, something catches his attention. His car stops in the middle of the bike lane, where a crazy cyclist is coming from. His friend asks Jun if something happened. The elegant man simply adjusts his seatbelt and apologizes. Oh no, our protagonist appears at high speed, desperate beside Jun's car. Before an accident could happen, he gets out of the car and asks the girl what she thinks she is doing. He scolds her, saying she knew it was dangerous to ride like that. Still shaken from the near accident, Danny apologizes and explains that she was chasing a taxi to recover a little old lady's forgotten belongings. However, the protagonist starts to lose her balance on the bicycle, but before she falls, the man quickly reaches out his hand, and he gently holds her, preventing anything worse from happening. Danny thanks him for the help with a beautiful smile. However, she is soon asked whether her eyes and brain were just for decoration. Looking at her, the young man asks if it isn't crazy to think she could catch a taxi using a simple bicycle. Still irritated with the situation, he questions what the hell Danny had in her head to do that, leaving her with a comical expression. The protagonist replies that she knows she did something stupid, but nausea takes over her and she urgently needs to cover her mouth. Oh my god, what a time for that to happen. Irritated, the young man hopes she will never do something risky like that again in the future, and ends up receiving a splash of vomit on his suit. Neither of them knows what to do except stand there facing each other in front of that unusual scene. Danny was truly devastated because of the nausea. A few compromising seconds pass. In disbelief, the young man receives an apology and some bills to use at the dry cleaners, which is all Danny can offer. He simply stares at the 12,000 ones while she apologizes again and leaves him there with the suit stained with vomit. Knowing what happened, we now return to where we left off, where Danny is indignant to see the same man she met yesterday sitting at the interview table. She never imagined she would see him again. Then the young man breaks the silence and asks if Danny isn't going to answer the questions, and she confirms that she will. Clever as she is, the protagonist replies that she would be sure the person did not vomit on purpose, would accept the apology and move on. However, full of irony, the executive laughs and asks if just an apology would be enough. He takes advantage of the situation to comment that Danny is not only responsible, but also very generous. He smiles and says that this is great while looking at her resume. Outside in a courtyard with some blue chairs scattered around. After these events, Danny complains to herself whether at the very least the company couldn't give her an interview fee, since they are one of the top 10 corporations. Our hardworking girl laments that the cost of living was already damn high, and to make things worse, the interview was ruined. So what would it cost her to make one more delivery at night? However, in the middle of her whining, the phone starts ringing. Danny answers immediately. To our protagonist's dismay, the voice is that of the vomited-on guy. He asks if he is really speaking to her, to which the girl replies yes. Unexpectedly, the suited man asks Danny where she is. The girl replies that she is in a convenience store on the first floor. Unexpectedly, he asks her not to leave there, leaving her confused and not knowing what the hell is going on with this guy. Time passes, and soon the two meet. Danny asks him what is going on. John asks if she has already forgotten about yesterday. He had to buy a new suit after she vomited on him, and he wants to ask her for reimbursement. But to the poor girl's surprise, the price of the suit is more than 4 million wons. She asks him what kind of clothes could cost all that. John explains that he also had to spend 400,000 more to remove the horrible smell of vomit from the car. At that moment, Danny falls into an indescribable emptiness. Our protagonist does not know how to deal with that absurd situation. Before she can suggest a deal, she is interrupted by the executive, who asks if she did not hear him introducing himself at the interview earlier. Offering a card to the protagonist, he jokes that she does not have a very good memory. So Danny takes the card and discovers that the young man's name is Jun Kang and that he is one of the managers of that company. The girl is impressed that Jun holds such a high position and has such an extensive record. Even more unexpectedly, he suggests that if Danny cannot pay for the suit, then she should become his girlfriend. What in the world? That leaves the protagonist in an absurd state of confusion. A few moments pass. After hearing those words, Danny asks if by any chance, could it be that Jun hit his head hard somewhere? She thinks that is a strange thing to say. Soon, Jun Kang lays it all out and reveals that he does not want a real relationship. He only wants an act that lasts 3 months. That's all, isn't it? And if Danny really agrees to become his girlfriend, they can forget what happened yesterday. With the contract in hand, he explains that he would even hire her as a general manager, and furthermore, he would pay her a separate contractual subsidy. Danny looks at him with a very surprised expression. Then she starts asking him, was this some kind of scam? Jun tells her that he has never been so misunderstood in his entire life. He asks how she could call him a scammer. Our protagonist replies that it is very hard to believe that Jun is an executive, because it makes no sense that he could place her inside the company so easily like that. And her mother always said that you cannot trust strangers. Trying to convince the girl, the manager asks if this proposal does not make her feel that she is incredibly talented, but that only makes Danny think that the suited man is truly a bigger scammer than she imagined. Jun Kang lets out a big sigh. Then, surrounded by an aura, he reveals that he managed to be promoted so quickly in the company because his grandfather is the current president of Cho Group Corporation. Danny is impressed and comments that Jun must be an impressive man then. After that, he questions whether she would not like to check the performance records and add a few herself. With that, Danny thinks for a moment and becomes more alert. In the end, she decides to turn her back on the contract. Noticing the girl's reaction, Jun remains silent for a few moments. Then he starts talking about how difficult it is to find a job with so many benefits for only 3 months. And if she did not like the proposal, she should pay the 4.5 million wons to him. Knowing he has the girl in his hands, Jun even says he will return the 10,000 she gave to wash the old suit at the dry cleaners. At that very moment, Danny grabs the contract and asks Jun Kang to wait a minute. She asks why he would promise so much money for her to become his girlfriend if he could simply ask that of anyone else. So Jun replies that it is easier to spend money on people, and besides, he does not have enough time to spend on a real relationship. Our protagonist pretends to understand and questions the executive whether he can hire her privately, like that. Jun explains that he was caught in a situation and needed to create a rumor that he was in a relationship. That makes Danny think about how corrupt that contract was. Our protagonist becomes more irritated and declares that Jun Kang cannot simply decide things on his own. Calmly, he asks her to read the contract instead of staring at him as if she wanted to kill him. In the end, she discovers that it is a short-term contract, and Jun explains that it will be useful for her to have that on her resume, proving the time she worked at a large company. Thinking it over, Danny knows she does not have the money to pay the corporate expenses. So for her, it will be very good to have a stable job, even if it is only for 3 months. With that, she sighs while he watches her. Danny holds out her hand and asks Jun for the pen. That makes him extremely happy. Oh my god, he had such a beautiful smile. Finally, the contract is signed. Jun Kang says he expects Danny on Monday for the new job. It was a beautiful sunny Monday with few clouds. The day goes by, and while walking, the protagonist reflects that at least she managed to get into a renowned company. However, all of this makes her very nervous. She grips the strap of her bag very tightly, until someone calls her name. Two other girls wave at her, which makes Danny look at the pair in confusion. Our protagonist looks at the black-haired girl and feels like she has seen her before. The girl introduces herself, saying her name is Sujin and that she saw the protagonist at the job interview. Danny then introduces herself as well. After the introductions, a voice calls the two of them. With the same energy, Sue calls her friend to follow her. Knowing that this woman managed to pass the interview, Danny feels a certain envy of her. Then we are introduced to team leader Yuri Min. Because of the boss's presence, Sue ends up stumbling over her words and introduces Danny to Yuri in a very awkward way. Embarrassed by the situation, Yuri simply says it is a pleasure to meet her. Strangely, the boss stares at the protagonist, who only watches in confusion. Soon, the team leader reveals that she would like to begin training with the new hire, but the internal situation of the company will not allow that right now, so she points to where Danny should go. She shows her a desk, saying she can use that corner and that if she has any questions, she can just ask Mr. O at the desk next to it. Then Mr. O himself appears, giving a thumbs up, confirming the instructions given by Yuri. Turning to leave, Yuri tells Danny that she should start by greeting the general manager. But before going, she explains that Team 1, of which they are part, is responsible for the new corporate goals approved by the company's own director. Then Yuri knocks on the manager's office door, informing him that the new employee has arrived. Humbly, Danny bows to introduce herself. The young woman is still very nervous. You can even hear her heart beating loudly. Suddenly, a familiar voice catches her attention. Pretending to be innocent, Jun appears out of nowhere and asks if Danny is starting work today. He wishes her well and introduces himself as Jun Kang, the general manager of the corporation. Danny is very surprised by that situation. What a huge injustice. Filled with anger, Danny cannot even question what Jun was doing. She is furious. She cannot believe his nerve, but the general manager is full of mischief and approaches her. Then Jun asks why the protagonist does not straighten up, because he comments that she herself said she did not care about that kind of situation. Danny quickly steps back, still irritated. What was the need for that, right? She exclaims to herself that she never said she was fine with this and that Jun is crazy. Then we go back a little into the past. And we are back to the day when the two of them made that agreement. Jun Kang walks closer to our protagonist. He explains that he wants to show it as much as possible, so Danny must touch him above the waist. And at that moment, the protagonist's conscience is already weighing on her. Then she opens her eyes. Jun explains again that physical contact between them is allowed, which makes the protagonist irritated and question how he can be so calm about it. He seems surprised by her reaction. The executive listens with a distressed expression as Danny says that contact must never be above the shoulders. The girl refuses any kind of proposal at that level. Besides that, and pointing at Jun, she questions why her own words are becoming less important. The man replies that this is because she herself accepted this contract, but she shoots back saying that she thought there was a clause against that in the contract. With that, Jun pauses for a few moments in silence. Then he takes the contract, which was kept inside his blazer. He points exactly to the part where Danny must obey his instructions, even if the protagonist is treated poorly during the process. Looking at the paper, Danny sees that it really was written in the contract. Tired, he says he will make a copy of the document for the protagonist to read later and no longer knows what else to say. After that, mischievously, he thinks about the two of them touching shoulders and that touch slowly moving further down. He was really shameless. That sentence leaves Danny furious. With the battle won, Jun asks his new girlfriend to save his number, warning her never to call twice and that she must always answer on the first time. Extremely angry, Danny thinks about how guys like him are all idiots. So, we return to the present. Our protagonist comments that she is not experienced in this kind of thing and asks if he is not going a little too far. Then the executive asks Danny not to break what they had already agreed on. Even so, the girl asks the manager to take his hands off her. Because of that, she whispers whether she really needs to do this kind of thing. Jun Kang replies that to be seen as his girlfriend, she will need to cooperate unconditionally in every situation. Yuri, not knowing how to react, simply watches the two of them talking. What a strange atmosphere. Jun and Danny realize they are being observed. Next, the executive asks the leader to gather the team so that he can introduce the new employee. After the boss leaves, the two are face to face again. Jun smiles at the girl. Wow, he should stop with those smiles. He jokes, saying that Danny thought he was going to devour her. She questions if that was not exactly what he was going to do, and sarcastically says she thinks she is already inside the manager's throat. Shocked to hear from Kang that that is more difficult than putting her hand on his shoulder and being asked if she has ever put one in her mouth, Danny asks if by any chance he grew up in a foreign country. He simply replies that he grew up in Korea. The protagonist says he does not know how to read between the lines and does not have a drop of moderation in the things he does. However, he just smiles. Then, Jun says that moderation is one of the words he likes the least. He claps his hands to the employees. Finally, a professional gesture. After introducing Danny to her teammates, the general manager gives a speech saying that the company has only come this far because of them, but the new brand still has a long way to go. He explains that they are making up for lost ground and need to move forward, since the team was assembled in a hurry and they still have a lot to improve. He announces the new team member and sets a 3-month deadline for them to focus on the work and finish what needs to be done, leaving the protagonist surprised. Danny anxiously thinks that she should have listened to her mother, but now it was too late. Smiling, he finishes by asking, why not make some changes to help everyone work more efficiently? Danny still has not gotten used to the touch on her shoulders. Jun Kang tells Yuri that the new hires must get used to the fast pace as quickly as they can, so Danny will become his executive assistant from now on. He tells the boss that he will need her help a lot during this time. Soon, he turns to Danny, telling everyone that she is, but he does not finish the sentence, causing an awkward silence in the room. Irritated and confused, the protagonist waits for Kang to say something and finish the sentence, until her eyes widen and our protagonist cannot believe what is happening. He starts to speak, keeping the suspense. Slowly, Jun holds her and reveals to everyone that Danny is his girlfriend. He even gives a little wink when saying the word girlfriend. Ironically, he wishes good luck to his partner, who does not know where to hide her face. Holding his girlfriend, Kang comments that he really is not a fan of the word moderation, and he tells the protagonist to follow the script properly. To him, it was all just a little play, wasn't it? However, all of that was only a daydream that Danny thought would happen. Our protagonist keeps looking at him, afraid that he will tell everyone that the two of them are in a relationship. The atmosphere became tense. And now, what would come next? Danny could not believe what was happening. For our protagonist's luck, Jun simply asks her to go into the office with him. She found that very strange. Danny wondered what reason Jun had to bother talking about something that truly does not matter at all. Inside the room, with a light air, the executive asked if the little executive assistant story was plausible. But Danny, still displeased, asks, what would be plausible to him? Irritated, she questions if he knows how many times she felt her heart was going to jump out of her mouth, and asks why he does not simply tell everyone that she is his girlfriend. Jun Kang admits that is not exactly what he wants. But he teases Danny by asking if the protagonist wants him. Thus, once again, Danny questions Jun if he really is Korean, and he replies that he has not even started and is already feeling quite bad. The executive commented that all of that is going to be fun. However, Danny asks if that is the only thing they are there to talk about. He smiles at her, extending his hand to the protagonist. Jun asks that, since they are in the same boat, Danny do this favor for him. Favors, and more favors. He thanked the girl for not running away and going back to work, while she observed the boss's outstretched arm. The protagonist stops, sighs, and assumes that she truly has no intention of running away and escaping the agreement. They shake hands, but Danny also says that she has no intention of letting Jun get away with this contract. She will not let the executive do whatever he wants in his own way. Time kept passing. Danny talks with a team colleague while they were having coffee. He warns that the protagonist does not need to wear her employee ID all the time. The girl thanked him with an embarrassed smile. Suddenly, Jun appears behind Danny, calling her name. He looked like a horror movie killer. Frightened, Danny notices him and, desperate, almost drops the coffee. He held the coffee so it would not spill. Jun gently holds his girlfriend, asking if she is all right. That made Mr. O shocked, and our protagonist comically pulled away from Jun's arms. Whispering so that no one notices, Danny questions what the manager is doing there without any warning. Jun only replied smiling and commenting that her coffee looked delicious. The protagonist then retorts by questioning if he has never seen mixed coffee before. Danny grabs one of the coffee packets, saying that there are plenty of them there. She said that if the coffee looks so delicious, he himself should grab a cup, and she ran off right after. Soon we move forward in time once again, and the protagonist finds herself crouched down, wondering if she can push the machine a little. Because of her hair, she is not able to have a very good view of what is ahead. Suddenly, something catches her attention. Unexpectedly, Jun appeared once again and tucked Danny's hair behind her ears. He continued stroking her hair. In a sudden attitude, Danny says that she filled out the paper and that Jun can feel free to use it however he wants. Sometime later, in the computer area, Danny was busy doing her work. Out of nowhere, Jun appears to torment the protagonist, who can no longer stand the surprise interruptions from her contract boyfriend. She realized that a colleague noticed their interaction, so she makes a gesture asking Jun to please go away. Oh my god, that situation could not get any worse. He only laughed and told Danny to do her best. Sometime later, our protagonist was near the elevator. Wow, the girl looked very exhausted. Suddenly, she began to hear the voices of other employees talking. Poor Danny sees the general manager approaching while talking with another executive. Before they got closer, she begins to hurry away from there. Our worker exclaims to herself that she does not want to get involved with anything else today. All she wanted was to run away from there. Finally, after a long day of work, Danny arrived home. Finally, safe and sound. While taking off her shoes at the entrance, she tells her mother that she arrived home. Her mother asks if her daughter wants to eat something. However, Danny's disgust is so great that she does not even want dinner. With no energy at all, she goes to her room. She throws her bag to the side and simply collapsed on the bed. She cannot believe how bad all of that was. Then she vents that Junkang's only function was to follow his girlfriend, shouting that she was chased all day and could not focus on anything. Feeling as if the image of her boss was haunting her, she exclaims that all of this is very irritating. Hitting the pillow, she wonders if all of this is because the idiot manager is handsome. Our protagonist continues questioning what the reason was for the executive to follow her throughout the entire workday. She pauses for a few moments to catch her breath. Danny whispers to herself that she will not let him have peace. Completely filled with disgust, she even says that she will report Jun for harassment in the workplace. Right after that, the phone starts vibrating. She turns to see what it was. On the screen, Danny sees a message notification. That same night, the protagonist realizes that she forgot something. Picking up her phone, she says that she completely forgot that Max would release a new vlog about lunchbox recipes on the channel tonight. Danny decides that she will just enjoy her favorite's new vlog. She even goes ahead and gives it a like. The video starts with Max greeting his viewers in the sweetest way in the world. That boy was very cute, don't you think? He says that the weather has been very nice these days, and with a love-struck look, Danny thinks that Max looks very cute wearing an apron. While an image of a lunchbox full of cute little things appears, Max says that he really wants to go on a picnic, and that he is going to start preparing the lunchbox. With that, Danny's imagination runs wild, thinking about the two of them having a happy picnic. However, reality hits, and discouraged, the protagonist comments that this was not the time for that. The girl remembers that she needs to find the materials that Manager Cho asked for by tomorrow morning. Our protagonist questions whether she really should do that. She decides that she will not. But should she really not? The scene cuts and we see the couple talking about the various part-time jobs that Danny had managed to get, including the wedding assistant job. Danny asks if there is any problem with that, and the executive replies that there is not. But on the contrary, it will be very useful. Danny asks how it could be useful. Jun says that he wants the protagonist to use the experience she has gained and focus on the job. Danny questions him, and Jun quickly replies that she must be a simple employee who is the general manager's girlfriend. That is her job. He confesses that he did not hire a new recruit for the planning team, so Danny should not get her hopes up. He does not expect her to be good at that kind of service, and she does not even need to be. But Danny soon remembers the rumors that he teaches everything at lightning speed and the others will get suspicious. However, Jun says that is not a problem, because he only chose her as his assistant as an excuse. Adjusting himself, Junkang says that since Danny decided to return to work, that meant she was determined to fulfill the contract and there was no turning back. In addition, the executive says that she cannot break a contract just by using mere words. Ironically, he also warns that the penalty fee for breaking a contract is not cheap at all, and Danny should keep that very fresh in her mind. With that, we return to the present where our protagonist continues reflecting and watching the lunchbox video. While holding her phone, she thinks that in a way, Jun is right. According to her contract, her only duty is really to be the general manager's girlfriend. She reflects that the job is just to pretend to be his girlfriend or getting straight to the point, but she does not finish the sentence and does not want to think about it anymore. After that philosophical moment, Danny becomes indignant. It was truly a terrible situation. She finally admits that she cannot simply do only that. Then she remembers that there is nothing to worry about with a contract of only 3 months, so she will torment him to hell. Our protagonist is determined to earn the money, learn how to work properly, and use the experience she gains in her future career later on. With her hand clenched into a fist with holy fury, she repeats what Jun said, that she would only be a decorative assistant. Then, she shouts that he can do all of this however he wants. but she herself knows that it would be much better if she had some kind of resume showing what an executive assistant actually does. At that very moment on the phone, Max shouts that he is there to cheer for her and that she can do it. That's right, Kitty. Our protagonist takes those words as if they were meant for her herself. She turns her eyes back to the phone, repeating that she really can achieve what she wants. After that, we return to our dear protagonist's workplace. She enters the office greeting her coworkers. However, something frightens her. She hears one of the employees calling someone crazy. Watching the scene, she sees a man yelling at a young woman, asking if she understood what he meant or not. He shouts that he asked the employee to find last year's record, not that one. Besides that, he asks what the hell is wrong with her? Danny looks at that scene completely in disbelief. Behind her, the girl hears someone asking what is going on. Mr. O explains to a coworker that Manager Cho was but before finishing, he asks what was happening there. One of them answers that the man is training a new employee. Danny is very shocked. What kind of training is that? In disbelief, Danny questions what kind of man that was. Violently, the executive comments that this happens every time. Whenever he sees a new employee like her, he cannot help himself. Smiling maliciously, he warns that he has been keeping an eye on her recently. He continues mocking her, saying that the girl cannot even hold a stapler properly. And finally, he mocks her by saying that she goes to work and decorates her desk with colorful papers. Danny is very disturbed by that violent behavior. She places her bag on a desk. Unable to contain herself, Danny becomes furious and shouts, calling out to the boss. Our protagonist places herself in front of the new employee. With a defiant look, she questions the executive whether he does not think he went a little too far. That interference makes him even more irritated. There in the office, Danny looks very brave, placing herself between the abusive boss and the employee who is very frightened. "You go, girl!" With a furious expression, she asks again if he does not think he went too far. Who was he to say those terrible things? But the man does not answer, becoming even redder with anger. Pointing at Danny, the boss asks how she dares to interrupt him, and that the girl has no right at all to do that. Danny tells him that she is not the type of person who would pretend not to see something like that. She continues speaking and declares that that behavior is unacceptable. The man becomes even more bothered by the young woman's boldness. Who was she to talk to him like that? Danny will be your worst nightmare, bad guy. He asks what she is doing, threatening him. She says she would ask him the same. The boss demands that she apologize to him. No chance, man. Then, the man realizes that some people in the office have already noticed what was happening and are whispering behind his back. That bastard is almost growling with anger. Furious, he says that those chattering little women are too much. He continues making several sexist comments toward Danny and the employee behind her. Purple with rage, he says that women nowadays do not even make coffee for their bosses. Things like that were far too obvious. Catching him off guard, suddenly someone behind him asks what story that was about making coffee for the boss. Behind the boss, Jun Kang appears, the respected general manager of the company. The girls watch everything in silence. Jun has a furious expression. Wow, I would not want to be in his way. Danny and the other woman watch as the boss is questioned about why the employees would have to do things beyond their obligations to the company. He bows respectfully to the manager, trying to explain that he was teaching the two of them how to be respectful to their superiors, but Jun Kang is not believing any of that. Jun explains that he has never received any demand like that from his own supervisor. Is that why that boss did not respect him? The manager is truly very annoyed with that situation. On the other side of the conversation, Danny is even more furious because she hates injustices. The executive closes his eyes, letting out a long sigh. He orders the boss never to repeat those attitudes again and to resolve the problems. The man agrees and looks very frightened. Jun Kang walks away, which leaves the boss relieved. Right after that, he remembers something. Before the manager leaves, he demands that the man make him a cup of coffee full of respect. The boss says that he will make the coffee immediately. Danny is very distressed, and the boss very anxious. Trying to regain composure, the man asks the girls if they heard what the general manager said. Now they should return to their duties. But Danny is not satisfied with the outcome and tells the boss to apologize. Immediately, he apologizes to the employee, asking her to forget what happened and improve in the future. Right after that, he runs off. Danny shouts at him, asking what kind of apology that was. The girl holds Danny back before she goes to hit the boss. With a smile, she tells her colleague that she is fine. What a relief. While some employees watch her, the girl says that it is a bit overwhelming to be recognized for more than that. Danny tries to understand her reaction. Sometime later, our protagonist was already sitting at her desk, reflecting on what had happened earlier. She stared at the keyboard. Danny was worried that because of her, Sujin's life would become more difficult. She kept thinking about whether she had confronted the boss without a real reason. However, the reason was indeed real. He had been rude and violent toward someone more vulnerable, taking advantage of the company's hierarchy. Danny remained silent for a few moments. Even so, she was not regretful for having confronted that bastard. The afternoon goes by without any more troubles. And finally, it gets dark. At last, the end of the day. Some employees finish their shift, and they calmly walk toward the company's exit. But before Danny could leave, someone calls out to her. But who could it be? She turns around, a little surprised to recognize that voice. And she is perplexed to see Ms. Sujin looking for her. The girl in the white dress approaches, saying that she was looking for Danny. Our protagonist did not understand the reason for that. Sujin would like to formally thank her for the help. Danny was still a little confused. A bit awkwardly, she says that it was fine. Our protagonist was a true heroine of justice. Sujin apologizes if she embarrassed her in any way and thanks Danny again for her courage, which prevented the situation from getting worse. Our protagonist tries to say that if she had done nothing, she was sure other people would have helped her. She was saying that according to her contract, an incident of that magnitude, but she falls silent before finishing the sentence. Sujin waits expectantly to hear the rest, without imagining what Danny was about to say. Danny quickly changes the subject, saying that the first time is difficult, but the second time everything becomes easier. Sujin is left speechless watching the drastic change in attitude. The brave girl says that the next time something like that happens, she will be there to help her. Danny asks Sujin to feel free to talk to her whenever necessary. She is a really nice girl and we like her, don't we? Her coworker gives a big smile and tells her that since then, her boss has not said another word to her, and that has made her routine much easier. Then, the young woman in the white dress offers to pay for dinner for Danny, as a way of repaying what the girl did for her. A new day begins at Cho Group. A new day, new events. Even though it is so early, Danny already seems to have a huge headache. She is sure that it is because she stayed up late the night before. Danny and Sujin went to a restaurant with karaoke where they drank a lot of beer and sang a lot. She remembers the first round of fried chicken, beer, karaoke, but the rest is a blur in her mind. It truly was a night of a lot of fun. Suddenly, on her computer, a notification appears on the workplace chat app. Danny wonders, who could it be? It was her friend, Sujin, asking what she was going to eat for lunch. But Danny still was not sure what she wanted and asked if she had any idea. Sujin tells her that the company cafeteria was serving ginseng chicken soup. Yummy. That was a great and delicious suggestion. The two agree to meet in front of the elevator at noon. Danny is very excited. At lunchtime, some employees head toward the elevator halls. Sujin asks her friend if she has ever been to the Cho Group cafeteria. Danny reveals that she has never gone. Her coworker is very shocked. Where had Danny been all that time? The cafeteria was very good and quite cheap too. While the two chat waiting for the elevator, Junkang is there silently lurking. Suddenly, he appears behind Danny and the girl lets out a loud scream of fright. That was driving her crazy. However, Sujin seems happy to see the manager. Certainly because she was not in a dating contract with him, right? With an elegant smile, he asks the girls if they are going to have lunch. Immune to his charm, Danny slowly replies that yes. Like an insistent boyfriend, Junkang asks Danny what she is going to eat. Internally, she is furious, begging him to leave her alone to have lunch. On the outside, she just replies that she is going to eat something small. The elevator doors open. The three of them enter, and there is an awkward silence. Sujin does not understand why her friend seems so annoyed. She looks at Danny, hoping she will explain something. Then, the black-haired girl tells the manager that they are going to have lunch at the cafeteria and asks if he would not like to eat something. He gives a big smile and says that eating would be very nice. Wow, he was really handsome. Sujin even invites him to join them at the cafeteria, but he explains that he needs to finish something before having lunch. Before the girls go to the cafeteria, he turns toward them, and with another charming smile, he wishes the girls a great lunch. The elevator doors close. While Danny lets out a sigh of disgust, Sujin lets out a sigh of passion. With her hands clasped together, the girl keeps thinking about the manager. Sujin considered the general manager a very nice man with good manners. She even said that Danny was very lucky to be on the same team as him. Little did her coworker know what he was putting the girl through. Suji sighs, saying she wishes her boyfriend were as good as the manager. That sentence catches Danny by surprise. She becomes a little confused. What a situation. But before she can say anything, she is dragged by Sujin to hurry to the cafeteria. Then, Danny gathers the courage and asks if Sujin has a boyfriend. Her friend explains that she has been with the same person for 10 years. Wow. Even Danny feels envious of that commitment. But Sujin quickly says there is no reason to feel envious because they have been together for so long that they feel more like old acquaintances than boyfriend and girlfriend. Danny remains silent, thinking about how she could comfort her friend. Not caring too much, Sujin decides to change the subject and says it is time for them to go eat. Danny brings her badge close to the scanner. However, the machine does not read it. Our protagonist did not need another annoying situation. Danny asks her friend what could have happened. Sujin asks if the machine is not working. Behind them, a line of hungry employees watches them in a threatening way. Our protagonist becomes very distressed upon realizing what is happening. She calls her friend and explains that it is better for her to go eat outside. But before she can leave, someone asks if Danny needs help with something. Beside her, a handsome blonde man with captivating brown eyes appears. Wow, he looked like he came out of a dream. The charming young man gives her a beautiful smile. He points to Danny's badge and asks if the machine is not recognizing it. The girl explains that happens sometimes. He takes her badge and asks her to follow him for a moment. The two girls hesitate a little. You could even play suspense music right now. Danny decides to go with him, and Sujin says she will wait there. Meanwhile, other employees use the machines. At the reception, the blonde man leads Danny to an attendant who is working on a computer. While he talks to the young woman, our protagonist waits in silence. The receptionist asks Danny which department she belongs to. The girl approaches the counter and answers that she is from Planning Team 1. The blonde man watches her as Danny gives her full name to the attendant. Then the young woman hands her a temporary badge. What a surprise. Danny is impressed by how quickly her problem is resolved. The blonde man explains that she can use that card that day to access the cafeteria. He also tells her that if her badge fails again, she just needs to request another one at the reception. She feels very happy. As they walk, Danny thanks him for his kindness and tells him it is her first time at the cafeteria. He says that her friend must have been waiting for a while and that it would be good for them to go eat. She says goodbye and wishes him a great lunch. Before he leaves, he turns to her and asks her to go to the HR team so they can adjust her badge. It will be very quick. With a smile, he says he will be waiting for her there. He waves cheerfully and leaves. Danny feels very grateful for the kindness with which the young man treated her. However, unexpectedly, Sujin appears behind her, letting out a little giggle which leaves Danny completely flushed. Sometime later, Danny peeks through the window of the HR office. Suji appears beside her, asking if the guy had not mentioned someone specific for them to look for there. Danny replies that he only asked her to go there. They try to look through the glass, but it seems like there is no one in the office. Suddenly, the blonde guy appears behind them, asking why they are not coming in. The girls are startled, and then everyone bursts into laughter. On the desk, there is a soda. Yummy. It looks very refreshing. Danny thanks him again for the help earlier that day. A little hesitant, he clarifies that he was just doing his job. The man says that he feels a bit embarrassed by her thanking him so many times. She had even brought him a soda. Danny becomes worried and asks him if there is any problem with him receiving that kind of gift. He replies that there is not. He says that he will enjoy it very much. Then, the blonde man declares that next time, the coffee will be on him. Sujin watches the two of them talking. She thinks it is very cute. The two of them would even make a very cute couple, wouldn't they? Letting out a few giggles, the black-haired woman tells Danny that she will wait for her at the exit. The blonde guy asks if she is from Planning Team 1. Then, he asks to see her badge again. In order to configure a new badge, Danny needs to fill out a form, so he hands her a tablet to sign a few pages. She positioned the pen to write, but it seemed like something was wrong. Danny became confused. What was happening? Behind her, her friend Sujin was talking with another coworker. Our protagonist picked up the tablet and began to explain to him. For her, maybe the badge was not working because she was a temporary employee. Something changed in the blonde man's expression. He reassured her, saying that was not a problem. Holding her badge, he pointed to a small detail. The young man explained that her card was damaged because it had a slight bend, and that was interfering with the machine's reading. Once again, Danny thanked him, and he said she did not need to thank him so many times. She saw her own registration on his computer, and everything seemed correct. You could even see that it stated she was a full-time general employee. Sometime later, Sujin asked our protagonist what she thought of manager Michael Seo from HR. Danny answered with a smile that he was a very kind and polite man. Sujin asked if she thought he was only kind. What a curious girl she is. Danny replied that he was tall, very attractive, and when he smiled, he looked like a ray of sunshine. After that whole description, the black-haired girl asked her friend again what she thought of manager Seo. Danny did not know what else to say. Sujin told her that she noticed how his eyes sparkled when he said he would buy coffee for her next time. It was as if he wanted Danny to be his girl, but our protagonist, thankfully, was not taking her friend's words seriously. Truly, for her own good, Danny revealed to Sujin that she hated workplace romances. Suddenly, something caught her attention. In the distance, Jun Kang, her contract boyfriend, was staring intensely at her. He gestured that if she did not want to pay the contract penalty, she should choose her words carefully. And he kept making a gesture that he was watching everything. Oh no. It was a situation that left Danny very exhausted. She clasped her hands with some apprehension and began to explain something to Sujin. The girl noticed her friend's trembling hands. Finally, Danny declared that she already had a boyfriend. She did not need to say it was under contract. Sujin was a little surprised by that confession. Our protagonist tried to explain that they had barely started dating. On the other side of the room, Jun Kang looked at her in disapproval. Sujin apologized to her friend, saying she could have told her earlier because earlier that day she had almost made a mistake. She asked if Danny was okay. Yes, truly, our protagonist did not look well at all. Sujin looked back, while her friend still had a grim expression on her face. Behind them, General Manager Jun Kang appeared. He did not look friendly at all either. Between the two of them, you could practically see the flames. What the executive wanted was for Danny to expose their relationship, but she was not willing. Sujin thought that atmosphere between them was super strange. She asked, after all, what was going on? Why were the two of them acting that way? The afternoon continues. Far from there, a large airplane crossed the sky. It landed at Korea's international airport. A very elegant woman with pink hair and a white dress walked through the airport corridor. She wore expensive sparkling earrings, designer shades, and a matching necklace. Wherever she passed, her look drew people's attention. A woman noticed who she was. Wow, she really looked like a famous person. At the airport, people whispered, asking if that pink-haired girl was not Ju Hyunju, the famous influencer. Truly, she was very beautiful. She took off her glasses to see better. Very chic. Her light green eyes made a beautiful contrast with her colorful hair. Approaching a large window, she said to herself how Seoul's air was always the same. She took out her phone. With a distracted expression, she commented that they would be shocked when they found out she had returned. Even so, she gave an enigmatic smile. On her phone, she looked at a photo where she appeared much younger, and beside her there was a little boy. Wow, that child was Jun Kang. Ju could hardly wait to see their faces when they saw her. It was a beautiful day near the large international airport. Ju searched for someone in her phone contacts. Then she found a name that was saved in her favorites. While she looked annoyed at her phone, people commented about her return and the time she had lived abroad. The beautiful woman thought for a few moments. Then she decided to call that number. When he answered, she said, "Long time no see, right?" Far from there, in a large company. Henry Hyuk answered the phone. The young man seemed very surprised. He asked if the one speaking was Ju Hyunju. Why would she be calling him out of nowhere? She asked, "How is it that, with your lack of awareness, you managed to accomplish anything?" Indeed, beauty was not something connected to kindness. While heading toward the airport exit, she explained to Henry that she had just arrived in Korea and asked how he was doing. But the young man seemed far too apprehensive to talk properly. She said she was very curious to know the latest news about Jun Kang, and Henry simply replied that if she wanted to know something, she should call him directly. Ju Hyunju was surprised to hear that. With a threatening expression, she asked Henry what he had just said. What did that story about a girlfriend mean? Already nervous, she began twisting her hair around her fingers. On the phone, she told Henry that she hoped it was just another one of his little jokes. If he knew how scary she could be, why was he messing with her? According to him, there were rumors that Jun was dating a woman from work. Henry confided that everyone who saw them said the executive was completely in love with the girl. That confession left Ju deeply shaken. That would have consequences. On the other end of the line, she told Henry that it was not funny at all and that she was going to hang up. Before Henry could say anything, she walked off through the airport. She held the phone tightly. Girlfriend? What nonsense. As she walked intensely, Ju wondered who had given him permission. After all, how dared Jun Kang date someone? That bastard. Far from there in the office, Danny looked around searching for something. Apparently, the girl suddenly felt a few chills. Why did that happen? Right? A few minutes later, she entered the general manager's office to deliver some documents he had requested. Immediately, he extended his hand to her. Danny was a little surprised by that sudden gesture. Jun Kang looked very focused. He took the papers from Danny's hands without even greeting her or looking at the girl. She found that very rude. Our protagonist waited silently while the executive looked over the papers. Finally, he thanked her without saying anything else. That was just like him, and he praised the good work she had done until he noticed a detail. Danny remained silent, waiting for his reaction. Why did a chatterbox like him suddenly stop talking? Suddenly, he reached his hand toward her, gently touching her face and hair. To her surprise, June still did not say anything more. She asked what all of that was about. Irritated by the sudden touch, Danny asked what he was thinking. Now, to our surprise, June simply replied that he was fixing her collar. Then he explained that her collar was wrinkled. Wow, finally Danny understood what was happening. She started patting it a few times to smooth it out, and June asked what she was doing. He heard our annoyed protagonist tell him that she felt uncomfortable when he made advances, even when no one was around. Jun Kang remained silent for a few moments. His gaze was very enigmatic. What did that mean? Then, he told Danny that she was acting very strange today. She held a clenched fist close to herself. Before our protagonist could answer, Jun Kang was already thinking about a schedule for the next day. Danny wondered why he had to be so attractive. The girl had not noticed it before because of the haircut, but the executive looked a lot like her internet idol, Max. That thought drove Danny crazy. The girl tried to compose herself while her manager looked at her completely confused. The personalities of the two were completely different, despite the great physical resemblance. Wow, both of them were really handsome. While she was furiously comparing the two men, behind her, Junkang said that tomorrow they would have an appointment to attend together in the afternoon and she should be prepared. Danny became very worried and asked him what kind of place she should prepare for. Junkang replied that it was a place he needed to go to with his girlfriend, and he flashed her a charming smile, asking if she understood what he meant. Danny thought for a moment before answering. In the end, she gave up and said she would manage. The next day, at the large Cho Group building, a beautiful yellow skirt fluttered in the wind. Danny had even prepared beautiful makeup so that everything would go well. Our lovely protagonist could barely recognize herself in the mirror. Apparently, it was not very common for her to dress up so much, even though she was a very beautiful woman. However, her thoughts were interrupted by someone calling her. Her friend Sujin jumped on her and asked what the occasion was. Danny looked fantastic. "We agree, girl. She looked wonderful." Danny would do anything to avoid answering. Our protagonist brushed it off, saying she just wanted to change things up a bit, but Sujin kept asking if she had a date with her boyfriend. Suddenly, Junkang stopped in front of the two of them. He looked stunned by Danny's beautiful appearance. She raised her hand, and in a playful gesture, she asked the executive what he thought of her look. Junkang was completely paralyzed and speechless. There, in the company hallway, the three of them stared at each other in silence. With a big smile, the executive called Danny to talk for a moment in his office. Then he opened the door for her. But to our great surprise, he was horrified by her choice of outfit. Jun asked what kind of clothes she was wearing. The day before, he had told her to dress nicely. Danny became very irritated by that comment, since she was wearing one of her best dresses. June said she looked like a 12-year-old girl dressed for a meeting. That comment crushed Danny. She was so angry and reminded him that it was he himself who had told her to dress up. Jun regretted having made that request. He declared that if he had known Danny would show up like that, he would not have asked anything. While he picked up his phone, the girl tied her hair up, thinking she had no other choice. Our protagonist heard him call for manager Jang. Then, she heard him ask to cancel the delivery of the dress for that afternoon. What could he be talking about? Jun handed her a card and demanded that she get the address from Jang and head there immediately. Pushing the girl outside, he instructed her to ask them not to dress her in anything too flashy, since they were going to a publication launch party. Danny should be nice and accept whatever outfit they offered her. She walked hurriedly down the hallway. Before leaving, she turned to him to ask what kind of party that was. Sometime later, at a large shopping center, Danny looked at the store and asked what all of that was. In the display window, there were many sparkling jewels. They also had designer bags and a large golden chandelier. Several saleswomen brought elegant clothes to her, but Danny was still frozen, not knowing how to deal with that situation. One of them handed her an elegant red dress, saying that it had been reserved for her. Another woman approached with a white dress, saying that one would look better on her. Danny was overwhelmed by so many choices. She did not know how to simply choose. She asked the women what kind of dresses were worn for that type of occasion. Our protagonist explained to them that she could not be too flashy. Since it was a publication event, Danny was buried under so many decisions. Suddenly, interrupting the girls' drama, one of the young women told her to head to the makeup lounge, even though Danny said she was already wearing makeup. But she was dragged away, while hearing the woman say not to worry, since Danny's makeup would be removed. A few moments later, someone gently applied compact powder to our protagonist's face. To complete the situation, another woman appeared to inform her that Danny would also get her hair and nails done. The truth is that Danny seemed to feel very well taken care of, despite the delicate situation. She wondered what other benefits that contract might have. She barely knew whether her nails were in good condition. The afternoon went on, lighting up that shopping center. Junkang was waiting for Danny to return. He was standing outside the company until a black taxi stopped in front of him. The manager was eager to know whether his expectations had been met. He went to the car to ask why Danny was not getting out. The man looked inside the car, and his expression seemed surprised. Junkang looked impressed by the work they had done. Wow, Danny looked very different in a beautiful blue dress that matched her eyes. She had also gotten a lovely pair of earrings and a necklace. Our protagonist complained that the waist was too tight and that she could not move much. Despite her comments, Junkang was very satisfied and happy. Danny revealed that it was her first time wearing high heels. She walked beside him, complaining about how people were able to walk in those things. Trying to convince him, she even made a sad little face. The executive looked at her, trying to decipher what she was trying to tell him. Danny asked why he was looking at her like that. Internally, the girl wondered how he could look even more handsome that day. He simply replied that they had not set any limits, and that she looked like a watermelon. Wow, what did he mean by that? Danny asked if he had any idea how much that makeover had cost. It was not even her money, and because of that, her hands had been trembling at checkout. He extended his arm for her to hold. Danny looked at him a little confused. Jun gestured for her to grab his arm. A little annoyed, our protagonist asked what that was about. He reminded her that Danny had said it was hard to walk in those shoes. The executive asked if she would be able to walk. but the girl was very determined and just replied that she would try. With a slight smile, he asked her not to be nervous. As they walked, Jun explained that everything would be fine, but Danny remained very apprehensive, despite the words of her contract boyfriend. Her hands were trembling because of the nervousness. Then, Junkang placed his hand on top of hers to calm her down. Danny was surprised when she felt him. With a gallant smile, the executive guided his contract girlfriend down the hallway. And finally, they arrived at a large formal hall. There were many very elegant people attending the event, and there were also many delicious foods being served on a table. Danny was practically drooling and asked if she could eat. Jun led the girl away from the appetizer table and said not even in her imagination. How mean. She truly deserved a little snack, didn't she? Bringing Danny closer, the executive explained that they were being watched by several people, from congressmen to presidents and journalists. He asked her to remain as discreet and silent as possible. Demanding even more from the girl, Junkang said that she should not answer any question without his permission, and if necessary, he would signal her. Quite annoyed, Danny confirmed that she understood she needed to stay quiet and still. Oh no, she tripped on her high heels. Danny began to fall. She closed her eyes, anticipating the pain. But before she could hit the ground, Junkang gently caught her in his arms, and the two exchanged glances. That sudden closeness clearly left Danny uncomfortable. She steadied herself again in her elegant new shoes. Irritated, Jun reminded her that she should stay still. Our protagonist said she had not done it on purpose. The executive, very sly, reminded her of a detail that had gone unnoticed. Now his hand had slid down to her waist. Danny replied that it was not the time for him to make jokes. She flailed her arms to push that big bad wolf away. Suddenly, someone called Junkang. Another executive, wearing a handsome formal suit, thanked Kang for attending the event. The man asked, "How is the health of the chairman of Cho Group?" With a polite smile, Jun replied that he was doing well. At that moment, Danny discovered that the man was a congressman. Oh my god. Then he asked who the young woman beside Jun was. Wow, Danny. Now it was your turn. Jun introduced Danny as his girlfriend, and despite the contract, our protagonist still felt quite uncomfortable. With a gentle look, he told the congressman that his girlfriend had insisted on accompanying him to that important celebration. Danny gave an awkward smile, but agreed with him. The congressman was very friendly. Our protagonist wondered how Junkang managed to get away with being so seductive with people. Then, she realized she was making an unpleasant face and composed herself. She looked around, a little apprehensive. Junkang smiled while thanking him for the compliments, as the congressman said that his business instincts matched those of his grandfather, the chairman. He was an attractive man, rich, rude but with a good heart, skilled, coming from a good family. What could possibly be missing for him to need a contract girlfriend? Danny wondered why he did not go on dates like normal people. With his looks, any woman would be enchanted. With that face smiling like that. Suddenly, something caught the executive's attention. He looked at Danny as if she were adorable. The girl wondered who would not fall in love with a man like him. She was anxious, trying to understand. Besides, his future girlfriend would wear expensive clothes, have designer bags, and only wear the best things. Danny imagined that with so many benefits, there would be a huge line of candidates wanting to date Junkang. So why had he chosen her? Interrupting her thoughts, Jun asked the girl what she was thinking about. Danny was a little startled by the interruption, and the two stared at each other for a few moments. She felt like her heart would not survive that day. She asked him what was wrong. Looking at his watch, Jun said they could leave already. He asked if she would like to go back to the office, and Danny thought it was a good idea. However, they did not know that a certain person was lurking at that event. While Jun and Danny were talking, Ju Hyunju watched them from a distance. Suddenly, she called Jun's name. Our protagonist recognized the woman. Wow, it was hard not to recognize someone so beautiful. Danny looked at her with an admiring gaze as the pink-haired woman approached the two of them. Ju looked stunning in a beautiful white dress. Her earrings matched her striking green eyes. Danny recognized the woman as the influencer heiress and socialite who always posted very fashionable photos. Our protagonist was in shock at the situation. Ignoring her presence, Ju approached Junkang. The girl was impressed to see a celebrity like that up close. For her, following the manager around had led her to this situation. However, Danny noticed that Jun was tense because his posture had completely changed. The protagonist did not understand why the atmosphere among the three of them had become so strange. They remained silent for a few moments. Finally, he asked the celebrity when she had returned to Korea. Ju replied that it had been only a short time, and she had not told him because she wanted to surprise him. She said there was, however, a problem. The elegant woman turned to Danny and asked, "Who was she?" Oh no, now the attention had shifted to her. However, Jun did not answer anything, leaving Danny waiting for his reaction. To our surprise, the executive remained silent, apparently nervous about that situation. The girl noticed the celebrity's intimidating gaze and wondered what she should say at that moment. Our dear protagonist was petrified. She did not even know what to do. Danny was very distressed. That situation was completely unexpected for her. She remembered that Jun had explicitly ordered her not to answer anyone without his permission. The girl began to utter a few words, but the truth was that that party had turned into a horror movie. Jun remained silent because he could barely speak. To everyone's surprise, the executive gathered his courage and declared to the woman that Danny was his girlfriend. Ju Hyunju was quite bothered by that declaration, but before she could speak, one of the executives present interrupted her and greeted Junkang from the other side of the hall. With a smile on his face, the man commented that the rumors were true. Junkang had finally gotten himself a girlfriend. Another surprise, right, Danny? Ju was furious at that intrusion. The man extended his hand to greet our protagonist, saying that he had heard a lot about her. He introduced himself as a great friend of Jun, and his name was Kim Jong. But the executive was already out of patience and began to push him away, saying that he needed to return to the office. Danny agreed to leave. Truly, that night was turning into a circus of horrors. Jun grabbed his contract girlfriend by the arm and the two walked toward the exit. Even so, Danny kept stumbling over her own shoes. Poor our protagonist. Jun turned to her and asked if she was okay. It was the first time he showed that he was genuinely concerned about her, but Ju was furious. Mr. Kim commented that Jun seemed very in love with the girl. Without realizing it, she began twisting her hair between her fingers again. The man would not stop talking. He rambled on about how his friend was a very lucky man, but Ju interrupted him and told him to stop it. Far from them, Junkang and Danny seemed relieved to be leaving that event. Ju cast a threatening look at the two of them. That was unbelievable. The scene cuts and suddenly we see a club packed with people. Wow, everyone looked very excited. What could be happening? Up on a stage was Max, Danny's idol. What a cutie. He was very charismatic and captured everyone's attention there. In the middle of the crowd, our protagonist held a few glow sticks, shouting very enthusiastically. Max waved to the people. He shone among so many flashing lights. He was so handsome, he even looked like a K-pop idol. His smile was radiant, out of this world. Wow, a smile like that could light up the entire club. Then, he knelt down. Danny was very happy seeing him so close. Suddenly, Max and our protagonist were face to face. It felt like the whole world had stopped and only the two of them were there in the club. The young man extended his hand to her. Completely in love with the idol, Danny tried to reach him. For a few moments, their hands touched. Oh my God, I am loving this story. Our protagonist could hardly believe what was happening. She wondered whether that was a dream or reality. However, something caught her off guard. She heard Junkang saying the word girlfriend. Suddenly, Danny was teleported to that formal hall, and Jun was holding her hand, calling her by her name. The executive gave a charming smile and kept calling the girl, not letting go of her hand. Danny screamed from the fright, not understanding what distorted reality that was. Finally, she woke up. Phew, thank goodness it was just a weird dream. To the relief of the protagonist, and ours too, she was safe in her own bed. In her mind still echoed the image of Jun Kang calling her dear. Danny kicked her sheets away. That dreadful dream had left her with a terrible headache. She wondered why she would dream about something so bizarre. Out of all the dreams to have, did it have to be that one? On her desk, the calendar had a special date marked with a heart. Looking closer, you could see that Max's concert would happen soon. Danny had even drawn a heart with a red pen so she would not forget that super special day. She wondered why that dream had to happen exactly on the day the concert would take place. Our protagonist let out a long sigh. The girl decided to get out of bed. There were many things to do. She grabbed her phone while thinking about how much he annoyed her to have shown up in her dreams like that. Danny found it frustrating that he would not leave her alone, even in her subconscious. Suddenly, the phone started ringing and she saw the general manager's name. Oops, her contract boyfriend, calling her. The phone even slipped from her hand because of the fright. Before answering, Danny did not miss the chance to curse a little. Could that bastard be telepathic, calling right after she had dreamed about him? The phone kept ringing insistently. In the end, Danny rejected the call. Phew, she deserved that break. It was the weekend, so she could have that moment of peace. However, the phone rang again. When she answered, Junkang was irritated and told her never to make him call twice. He heard her say she was on her day off and asked who had authorized her to take a day off. Then, Jun informed her that he would pick her up at 2 p.m., so she could send her address by text message. Danny was completely stunned by his words. She quickly got out of bed and shouted that she was busy that day. Our protagonist argued that she had important things to take care of. Over the phone, Jun replied that their contract should take priority above everything else. She insisted that she could not simply cancel her commitments. However, Jun ignored everything she said and just told her to send her address. Finally, he hung up and Danny needed a few moments to compose herself. The girl held her phone tightly, even though her hands were trembling. How could that damn man do that to her? Junkang had gone too far with her. Right at 2 p.m., the executive parked his car in front of Danny's building. He pressed the button to roll down the window. The window went down quickly, revealing Danny's face. She looked awful. Jun looked at her with a mocking expression. How dared she show up in front of him in that mood? It was the beginning of the afternoon, and he told her to get into the car. The car sped quickly through the streets. Junkang did not look satisfied at all. Danny was very, very upset. Finally, the executive decided to ask what she was going to do that was so important later. Our protagonist did not feel like talking and gave him a threatening look. Well, he was trying to take an interest in the matter. Danny did not feel confident sharing important things about her life with him, even though he was her contract boyfriend. Junkang took a deep breath while driving his luxury car. Then, she revealed to him that she was going to a concert that night. He repeated, shouting, "A concert?" The executive commented that she had told him it was something very important. Danny, shouting back at him, said that it was Max's first concert in 2 years. It had been very difficult for her to get those tickets. We agree it was truly a unique event, and she deserved to go. All of Jun's interest in that conversation drained away. Then he revealed that they would stop by a store and then go have dinner with some of his married friends. So Danny should behave. Danny was mad at him and asked, "You dragged me out of the house just to go eat with some friends of yours?" All of that after she had told him she had important plans. He merely replied that in the end, her commitment was not important at all. Danny was very upset because he promised he would give her something so expensive that she would forget the price of the tickets. She tried to explain to him that the problem was not the money. Before she could say anything else, he told her to drop it. How could he be so insensitive? Jun asked her what the point of that tantrum was. After all, she had voluntarily signed the contract he offered. Danny felt very sad hearing him demand that she either pay for the damage to his suit or accept following her obligations. Our protagonist was so disappointed by his behavior that she remained silent for a few moments. She was truly hurt. Look, seeing her sad even made me sad too. The girl firmly held onto her seatbelt, knowing she had already lost that battle. In the chic store, there were many elegant clothes hanging on racks. Impatient, Junkang asked if there were more options. One of the saleswomen showed Danny some blazer outfits and was constantly interrupted by the executive asking for more and more options. Danny was quite bored, but she could not understand his dissatisfaction. Because of Junkang, she was also starting to get impatient. What was his intention in making her waste time there? Annoyed, she asked if he was playing dress-up with the doll. The saleswoman also became uneasy when she saw his serious look. Apparently, he was angry about something, but no one could figure out what. Danny could not stand trying on so many different outfits anymore. She said he had been in a bad mood since the moment he woke up. In the middle of that crossfire, Danny promised she would make Junkang taste his own medicine. The sun set, painting the sky with various shades of orange and purple. Inside the restaurant, a lovely couple was talking. It was nice to see people in harmony every now and then. Mr. Kim gave a big smile. His guests had just arrived. Danny and Jun joined the couple. Then she recognized the man in front of her because she had seen him at the publication launch event. Mr. Kim said that, unfortunately, that day he had not been able to greet her properly, even though he had begged Junkang to introduce them. Then he introduced himself and said that the woman beside him was his wife. At least the two of them were quite friendly. Danny smiled at them, and despite her polite attitude, she wondered whether Jun thought she would play fair with him. Jun looked at her with a suspicious gaze. Our protagonist decided it was time to show who was in charge. If she had to be crazy, she would be crazy to the very end. Then, Danny began to gesture in a slightly strange way. Acting like a little child, she introduced herself to Jun's friends. The executive was horrified by her change in attitude. Even their friends were shocked. Jun nudged Danny with his elbow, trying to get her attention. He asked the girl, what did she think she was doing? Danny was determined to make Junkang regret everything. She smiled sweetly at him, pretending to be innocent. Our protagonist comically acted like a little child, telling Jun that his little Danny was hungry and her little tummy was making little noises. Making a very cute face, she asked Jun to give her lots of little foods. The executive was completely horrified by that performance. Mr. Kim cleared his throat. Trying to change the subject, the couple said it was a good time to order food and asked if they would like to eat meat or fish. Danny made a crying face. The two were left speechless when they heard the girl sniffling. Danny started shouting that she wanted chicken soup. Junkang was paralyzed, unable to react to that madness. She shouted even more, asking why he would not give her chicken soup. Stunned by the yelling of his contract girlfriend, the executive asked why she was shouting like that. Danny turned red with anger, saying that she wanted the food. Despite that, she was thinking about her idol, Max, bringing cotton candy to calm her down. Now, the entire restaurant was hearing Danny scream for chicken soup. Later, in the restaurant parking lot, Junkang was devastated, leaning over the steering wheel of the car. He muttered a few things to Danny. Without looking at her face, Jun asked if she had lost her mind. She asked indifferently what she had done wrong. He questioned her if she was really being serious. Then, quite furious, he reminded her of the scene she had caused in the restaurant, shouting and shaking in front of everyone. The executive was relieved because they had been with friends, but he was still very angry with her. Jun asked if Danny was making fun of him. Our protagonist said that he treated her like a little doll, so she decided to act like one. Finally, the girl asked if he was satisfied. Jun was speechless. He needed to pause for a few moments before answering. Danny watched as he released all his frustration. The executive declared to her that such behavior was a violation of the contract between them and asked if she was ready to pay the penalty. Danny asked what penalty he was talking about. Did their contract forbid baby talk? She grew furious and argued that the contract had been signed a long time ago, and therefore Jun Kang could not simply go around adding things. The girl continued arguing with him, saying he could add as many clauses as he wanted to the contract, since he was crazy anyway. Now he seemed more embarrassed than angry. The memory of Danny screaming in the restaurant haunted his thoughts. In the end, he agreed with her. Willing to negotiate, he asked what she wanted from him. Our protagonist felt slightly uncomfortable with that question. Jun asked if she wanted tickets to see her idol's concert. She quickly said that was not the problem. Then, Danny asked him to share his schedules and future events with her so she could check whether she could go with him. She thought it would be more practical to add that to the contract. Pointing her finger at him, Danny said it was her turn to make some decisions and demand penalties if the clauses were not fulfilled. The executive said he agreed, but the two of them needed to accept both terms. He asked Danny to act like a reasonable girlfriend within human understanding. Besides that, he was fed up with that crazy behavior. That way, our protagonist would accompany him to more formal events in the future. He placed some papers on the table. Danny held the sheets, trying to organize them. The contract even included a few museum visits. Jun flipped through the pages. There was really a lot of paper. He asked Danny not to add anything else to that contract. The day was coming to an end, and the sky was in beautiful shades of orange and purple. They would be together at other kinds of events as well, and Danny would stand beside him applauding whatever it might be. It seemed like something quite prestigious, since the other guests applauded too. Jun carefully read her conditions. Finally, it was time to sign the dating contract between the two of them. Suddenly, something caught his attention. Danny was standing alone in front of the elevator holding a bag from a chic store. He asked her if she was leaving. The girl replied that she was. Out of curiosity, she also asked if he had already finished his day. The executive replied that yes, obviously. Holding the updated contract in his hands, Jun said he would review it the next day. Danny told him to just hand the papers over to her while she fiddled with the bag. He held the bag while she reviewed the contract. Jun asked, what was inside that bag? She told him it was the dress and shoes from the event that they had gone to, and that she intended to return them to the store, even though it was very far away. The man remained silent for a few moments. He thought about it for a bit. Finally, the executive offered to drive her to the store. But first, the man asked Danny to sign the contract. She was super happy to get a free ride. The two entered the elevator, and the girl asked him if he could also take her home. Jun asked if he had now become her private taxi. Danny said he had no heart, and the elevator announced that they had arrived at basement level 3. The door opened, but the place was completely dark. Danny looked outside and asked why all the lights were off. She stepped out of the elevator. As she walked, she tried to understand why everything was dark. But before she could go far, Jun quickly stretched out his hand toward the girl. Unexpectedly, he grabbed her by the collar of her dress. Then, he quickly pressed the button to close the doors. Danny coughed several times. Oh my God, what happened? Still frightened by what had happened, Danny touched her neck and asked why he had done that. Suddenly, she noticed something very bad. Beside her, Jun Kang was leaning over the elevator rails. Danny tried to call him, but the bag with the dresses was lying crumpled on the floor. He looked terrible. Without further explanation, he began coughing a lot. Then came the sound of glass breaking. Oh no. Sometime later, Jun was sitting beside the crumpled bag. He looked at his phone while she stood anxiously in front of him. The executive was still trembling a lot. Poor him. What could have... Despite trembling, he managed to hold the phone and dial a number. Danny heard him anxiously ask Manager Jang to get his car keys and remove it from B3 level because the parking lot had no lights. Jun Kang was still feeling very unwell while talking on the phone. Finally, he hung up and took a deep breath. Danny approached him, and now we do not know whether she was furious or very worried about him. She looked at him with a serious expression and asked what had happened. Why had he acted that way? We want to know too, Danny. Jun was very annoyed by her questions. He closed his eyes for a few moments to think, but without clarifying anything further, he gestured for Danny to just leave. However, our determined protagonist told him to explain what was going on. Jun's hands were still trembling a lot, and he asked Danny again to step away from him. Seeing that she would not move away, he decided to shout for her to leave once and for all. Danny was startled by his sudden change in mood. Quickly, Jun stood up and grabbed the bag with the dress and shoes inside. The executive told Danny to stop bothering him and just go home. and that he himself would return the items to the store. Our protagonist tried to argue that she was worried about him, but it was in vain. Despite her concern, she told him that even when someone cared about him, Jun made a drama out of it. Danny left thinking how that attitude was so typical of him. And then someone called out to the general manager. Manager Jung approached, worried to know if his colleague was okay. Jun heard the manager ask if he was well enough to drive and noticed an important detail. His hands had stopped trembling. In the past, the tremors would last for hours. He looked at his hand and said he was fine. Jun gave a slightly shy smile. How cute. Deep down, he knew he was better thanks to the help of a certain person. Meanwhile, Danny marched furiously away from Grupo Cho. The next day, the employees were working in the office. Danny lightly knocked on the glass door of the general manager's office. She entered Jun Kang's office, asking about some documents he had requested. The executive looked at her curiously. He asked what she was talking about, because he had not requested anything. Danny explained that she needed a reason to come into his office. She sat down to talk to him. Danny wanted to talk about the previous night and asked if he had arrived home safely. Jun quickly became irritated by her questions and told the girl to leave. Besides that, he looked very different. His hair was messy, his usual suit was wrinkled, and he was not wearing a tie. He gestured for her to go back to work, and she reminded him that he had promised she did not need to work seriously. Danny slammed her hand on the desk. Our protagonist also became quite irritated and told him to stop changing the subject. After all, what had happened last night? He said she was too curious and should mind her own business. Jun took a deep breath. He looked very tired. Danny listened in disbelief as her contract boyfriend told her that he would have to leave 2 hours earlier that day, so she should return to her tasks. She stood up furiously at him. Now he was truly startled. Our protagonist reminded him that they had agreed to share their schedules in advance. She declared how unacceptable all of that was. With a victorious pose, she said that Jun Kang was violating their contract. Now yes, Danny felt like a winner. The man was very surprised to hear her say that it was time for him to pay a penalty. He let out a loud laugh. Jun Kang asked what she was talking about. Danny asked what he thought. She was imitating him when he had a nervous breakdown. Jun said that imitation was not accurate at all. Danny wanted him to admit she was right at least once. With an assertive look, she repeated that his behavior was a clear violation of the contract and that he would not simply get away with it. She added that Jun should forget about the penalty because she would give him a different punishment. The man asked what it would be. Our clever protagonist then asked him to tell her what had happened to him yesterday. Wow, it was time for him to reveal the secret. Danny was a little confused when she heard him say that he understood her situation. Jun said he had one condition. The girl asked since when punishments had conditions. He explained that what she was asking for was too much and not feasible. Danny accepted the condition, but internally she wondered what kind of big secret that was. The executive explained that the condition was that she accompany him to a family meeting and be super adorable with his relatives. Our protagonist assured him that everything would go well, since she had a lot of experience with older people from doing many part-time jobs with elderly clients. He was impressed. Truly, our Danny was a very clever girl and had everything it took to succeed. She took advantage of the situation to ask a question. Danny asked if the president gave her an allowance. Could she keep the money? Leaning back in his chair, Jun Kang said she could do whatever she wanted. The man held her as if Danny were a little puppy and told her to leave his office, but she refused. Danny warned that eventually he would have to explain to her what had happened that night, but Jun replied that he had never said he would tell her immediately. The afternoon went on. Danny walked wearing beautiful beige heels. In front of her stood a large mansion, with a high wall and a glass balcony. Our protagonist was impressed by the size of Jun Kang's parents' house. He asked if Danny had any problem, but she replied that everything was fine. The girl admitted that perhaps she had overestimated the size of that task. After all, most of her experience came from the K-dramas she watched. Now that was a big secret she could not reveal. She imagined his father-in-law offering her money so they would break up their contract relationship. Jun placed his hands on her shoulders, asking Danny to relax because his parents were very nice people. Our protagonist asked why he had scared her so much. Jun explained that she had a very innocent little face. Danny became furious because of that. He gently touched the protagonist's blonde hair. The girl was still a little apprehensive about the situation. Jun Kang gave a big smile and said that Danny, as his girlfriend, should not worry. That sudden kindness caught our protagonist by surprise because it was very different from the spoiled executive she dealt with daily. He held her hand like a true gentleman, saying she would make a good impression. Gently touching her hand, Jun invited her into his house. The late afternoon made the scenery even more beautiful, blending shades of orange with purple and pink. The family gathering had finally begun in the elegant mansion. On the table, there were several dishes that looked very delicious. Danny was impressed, but she was not sure where to start. She stared intensely at the food. Wow, they really looked very appetizing. Besides that, his parents were much nicer than she had imagined they would be. Our protagonist felt her conscience deeply shaken for deceiving them with the contract relationship. Junkung's mother asked her if the food was good. Danny replied that everything was delicious. Then, someone gestured with the jotgarak. Junkung's father revealed that his son had not told them what Danny liked to eat. Our protagonist's kind father-in-law told her that if they had known, they would have prepared her favorite dishes. Danny did not want them to go through trouble for her. The girl said that everything there was delicious and asked them if she could have another bowl. Jun watched her while she eagerly ate the ribs. Yummy. They really did look very good. The executive remembered how she had protested on the way to his house, claiming that he had not told her it would be a family dinner and that she might get indigestion. His mother picked up a cup of tea. She looked like a very refined lady. After dinner, they went up to the rooftop, and Danny's mother-in-law revealed that he had never brought any girlfriend for them to meet, which was why they were so surprised. That conversation was making June a little embarrassed. Danny asked his mother whether, with June's attractive appearance inherited from his father, he had never had other girlfriends before. Then, our protagonist assumed that he must be very shy. Jun gave an awkward laugh. The girl said that the osmanthus in the garden was very beautiful. Jun took her to see the tree up close. It was truly impressive. It looked like a very old and healthy plant. Danny seemed very happy and imagined that when it bloomed, the tree would be even more beautiful. She gently asked them to invite her again in the spring. Junkung's grandfather, holding his cane, said it would be a pleasure. The elderly man told her that when the time came, it would be a pleasure to invite her again. Danny smiled sweetly and thanked him. His family asked how June treated her at work, and she replied that he was very respectful and always treated her very well. Danny truly was a fantastic actress. While having coffee, seeing her interact well with his family made him feel much more at ease. But to everyone's surprise, the grandfather asked if they already had wedding plans. Wow, this time Jun almost spat out all his coffee. Danny was petrified while her boyfriend coughed intensely. His mother agreed with the grandfather, saying that soon June would be the next president, so he should settle down with a good woman and plan to have children. After all, if the two liked each other, what was the problem? The grandfather, the chairman of Grupo Cho, told them to hurry with the preparations, since money would not be a problem. Danny became even more worried when she heard the elderly man say that postponing a wedding would not benefit either of them. Then he said they should skip unnecessary ceremonies. Was the old man suggesting they even skip the engagement stage? June and Danny were feeling cornered, and the atmosphere seemed to grow heavier as his family said they wanted to see their future children. Then, the executive cleared his throat. Surprising Danny, June said the preparations would soon be arranged. He told his grandfather that they would do as he wished. The man glanced sideways, as if telling Danny to control her facial expression. Even though the situation had gotten out of control, she was handling herself well. Finally, she agreed with her boyfriend. His family could never know their secret. Danny thought for a few moments. She noticed that the only question they had asked her was about her name. Usually, when the subject was marriage, there were many questions. Was his family relieved that he was marrying a woman? But she realized that it was not just that. Apparently, if their son approved of the woman, they would automatically approve of her. While drinking her coffee, Danny thought that if they agreed with any potential bride, why did he need a contract? Suddenly, the protagonist noticed that her mother-in-law was looking at her. Besides being refined, Ms. Kang was a very sweet lady. There goes Danny's conscience being struck hard once again. The girl let out a soft sigh. Apparently, that situation would be her new life script, and therefore she should get used to it. The afternoon went on, the sky now taking on a beautiful reddish hue. On the street, Jun drove his elegant black car. Danny looked out the window with a distracted gaze. He asked how she knew about the osmanthus tree. She replied that it was obvious, but he did not think so, even though it was his grandfather's favorite tree. June explained that, as she had noticed, it was a very well-cared-for plant. The executive told the girl that his grandmother loved that tree. The scent of the osmanthus flowers always reminded him of her, so that was why his grandfather still took such good care of it. Danny thought for a moment about his words. Was that why his grandfather insisted so much that his grandson get married soon? She decided to ask her boyfriend why he had accepted the marriage. Danny felt uncomfortable lying to the elderly. Danny asked what would happen when their contract ended. He suggested that if they broke up, she could tell people that he had cheated on her. Our protagonist felt very uncomfortable. She asked if there were any other excuses they could give. Then June said she could claim that he got too distracted and she chose to break up with him. Maybe then his grandfather would never want to see his own grandson again and would send him away to America forever. Danny asked if Jun would like to go away to the US. He smiled distractedly and did not answer her question. Our protagonist was bothered and asked why he stopped answering her in the middle of a sentence. Upon hearing that she asked too many unnecessary questions, she said that if he did not want to answer them, he should just tell her. But then Danny remembered something, which made her even forget about the subject. She screamed so loudly that the moving car shook. Alarmed, Jun asked what had happened. Danny, completely in shock, said that she had forgotten some important documents at the office and they needed to go to the company immediately. Jun was stunned while she shouted at him to speed up. Jun looked terrible. The two arrived at the office and both were quite upset. While they were still in the car, he asked her what documents those were. He questioned why it was so important to go get them. It was not like someone at the office would steal some papers. The girl shouted at him to turn the car around. Danny explained that if he had not bothered her all week, she would have remembered to take the papers. With a worried look, she warned that if he did not take her to the office, she would get out and grab a taxi somewhere, because she needed to get the documents at any cost. He listened with some annoyance as she complained that she still needed to review some parts of the report. Finally, he sighed. While turning the car around, Jun thought he would not be able to handle this. He revealed that he would drop her off at some corner, but he ended up going with her anyway. The two entered the large Grupo Cho company building together. Before, Danny had tried to enter, but the receptionist said that without her badge, she would not be allowed in. How would she remember that detail so late at night? However, she had to go back to the car to get Jun, since he was the chairman's grandson. Danny dragged the general manager along so the doorman would understand that she was a regular employee. The man stated that they would have 10 minutes. Finally, she explained to her boyfriend that they had no choice. The girl opened the office door. The clock showed it was 10:28 p.m., and everything was dark and silent. Soon, she turned on her phone flashlight. She noticed that it was quite dark in her workroom. While the girl searched, the executive behind her seemed a little frightened. Danny pointed the phone light around the room and heard a noise behind her. The girl turned around to scold her boyfriend, claiming that if they searched together, maybe... However, when she looked back, she found him feeling unwell, crouched in a corner. Danny was very frightened. She ran toward Jun. The girl quickly approached and called out to him as he knelt on the floor. Danny grabbed him by the shoulders, trying to calm him down. She asked him what was wrong. Oh no, it was happening again. The girl told him to snap out of it. He seemed very, very unwell. Far away in his memories, we see a little Jun Kang locked in a dark place. The small child cried and asked for help, begging them to let him out. Jun Kang seemed deeply disturbed. Danny was very worried about him while trying to figure out what was happening to her boyfriend. He looked at her in a haunted way. Our protagonist just wanted him to say anything. Finally, he said with great difficulty that he was fine. The lights had finally turned on. Since he was fine, they could leave. The elevator hall was quiet. When the doors opened, Danny was carrying Jun. Wow, who would have thought our protagonist would be the hero of the night? She guided him down the hallway and held him so he would not fall. Whew, he managed to sit down and was breathing in relief. Despite that, his appearance had not improved yet. Danny had her back turned, and Jun decided to ask her something. The executive asked if his girlfriend was crying. Very distressed, Danny said she was not crying. The truth was that she was very worried about his condition and was afraid that something bad might happen to Jun. He explained that he was better now. Our protagonist asked how he could be fine after everything that had happened. She pulled him by the arm. Danny said that this time she would take him to the hospital. Even so, he said he would not go. She felt very bothered, especially because she noticed something. Jun Kang was pale and still insisted he was fine. So, she insisted that at least she would get something for him to drink. Danny gently touched his hand and asked if he would be okay alone for a few minutes. He held her hand and told his girlfriend not to worry. Jun Kang promised he was fine and asked her to sit beside him. Danny was curious about that change in attitude. What could that be? Finally, she gave in and joined him on the sofa. Outside, the night was calm and silent. Our protagonist asked if she had caused that. She wanted to know if he had gotten that way because she made him accompany her there. Jun Kang could not understand the logic of the question. Danny looked very sad. The girl felt bad because she thought she had been selfish. Danny explained that she had not realized how he was feeling. Suddenly, Jun raised a finger and gently touched Danny's face. Wow, how sweet. They looked really cute together. She was a little confused by that gesture. Danny asked what he was doing. He revealed to her that he would tell her the whole truth. Now yes, Danny was completely surprised. With a smile, he told his girlfriend that he would tell her everything she wanted to know. The scene begins showing a door in a warehouse. Someone approaches the door quickly. The metal doors open, and a young Jun Kang falls to the floor. He looks back, very frightened. The little boy quickly gets up, asking someone to wait for him. But it is too late, and the doors close behind him. He runs to them and, while banging hard, admits he was wrong. From the outside, it was possible to hear the poor young Jun's screams. He banged once more on the cold metal. Then, the little boy realized he was alone in that dark place. Jun cried and sobbed, big tears falling from his eyes. Poor thing. He did not deserve to go through something so terrible. He looked around and saw the silhouettes of strange statues. Everything in that place left him deeply disturbed. On the walls, there were very disturbing abstract paintings. Some statues that were only human heads were also stored there. He was too young to understand what those things were. Little Jun would not stop crying. You even wanted to hug him. Suddenly, fear took over and the figures in the paintings began to have threatening eyes. Even the statues seemed to have evil stares and frightened him deeply. The little boy wrapped himself in a blanket and started calling for someone. Still trembling a lot, he asked for help. Back to the present, Junkang had just revealed how he had been trapped in the art basement all night. Since then, he had panic attacks when he was in large, dark places. Danny, worried about him, asked how large the places needed to be, after hearing her ask how he felt driving at night, but he explained that in those situations, everything was fine. Our protagonist felt very relieved. Then she remembered a very important detail. Danny asked if that was why Junkang had felt unwell that night when they were in the dark parking lot. The girl said that if she had known about his fear, she would not have let him go down with her, or he could have waited for her in the elevator. Jun explained that he took that route many times, so he thought he would be fine. He asked her please not to tell anyone, since only his parents and manager Jang knew the story. Danny stayed silent for a few moments. Wow, it was really a huge revelation. A moment later, she asked the executive why he had been locked in the art basement. Junkang simply remained silent. He clenched his fist tightly and told his girlfriend that he could not drive at that moment, so she should call a taxi to go home. Danny asked him how she could just leave him there alone. Already trying to change the subject, he said he was fine, and if she was not going to leave, he would go first. His change in attitude left her shocked, and she at least wanted to help him stand up. He walked away and reminded her that she had an important meeting early in the morning and should go home soon. Junkang left and wished Danny good luck at tomorrow's meeting. The girl was left alone, and then the office door closed. Danny had judged him as a cold and emotionless man, but maybe he was different. She remembered very clearly the expression of torment on his face. His parents were very kind and did not seem like the type of people who would lock their own child up as punishment. Danny felt very distressed. She thought about the heavy metal doors and wondered what really happened. The next day, the city had a dark and rainy atmosphere. A cell phone rang on a table. Jun reached out his hand to answer. Danny's notification said that the meeting had ended. He smiled, knowing that his girlfriend was on her way back. Suddenly, Junkang noticed something. The man saw through the window of his office that it was starting to rain. But it was not just any rain, because apparently the day darkened quickly. Danny had just returned. Her shoes were very wet. She announced her arrival. Poor our protagonist. The girl noticed that all the desks were empty. Possibly everyone must have gone out for lunch. Thinking out loud, she lamented not having brought an umbrella, because she had not imagined that the rain would be so strong. Danny was completely soaked. She looked like a cute little puppy shaking herself to dry off. Jun was surprised to see that she had arrived so quickly. Danny said that she thought he had gone out for lunch. He wiped her face with a small towel because he had noticed how the rain had soaked her. The girl was very startled by that gesture. To her, Jun was just being nice and not out of any personal feeling. Danny focused on thinking that it was only professional courtesy between coworkers, but her gaze was very expressive. She tried very hard not to think about what she truly felt when looking at Jun. The executive moved the small towel away from her face for a few seconds. Suddenly, Danny touched his arm. Still wet from the rain, Danny looked at him with her beautiful blue eyes. When she looked at Jun, why was her heart beating so fast? Outside, the rain fell in thick drops, sliding down the window glass. In the office, there were only Danny and Jun. The silence between them was overwhelming. The girl gently touched his hand. Suddenly, Danny became aware of what was happening. She quickly let go of his hand, ruining the atmosphere between them. Jun asked her to wait, but our protagonist had already run off. The executive stood there in the hallway. Paralyzed by feelings he did not know how to describe, he stopped for a few moments, and then looked at his hand that was still holding the small towel. The scene cuts to the women's restroom. Danny closed the door very forcefully. Our protagonist was almost out of breath and looked like she had run an entire marathon. She looked at the mirror and said out loud that all of this was madness. The girl asked why her heart had raced so much and why her face was so red. Danny needed to get a hold of herself and remember that she was only acting as a girlfriend and that it was just a temporary contract. Even so, she was still very disturbed. The girl told herself to control that frustration. After the storm passed, the day became beautiful. A blue sky, almost without clouds. Sometime later, Danny was already calmer and dry despite the earlier rain. She was relieved because at least her clothes dried quickly. Then something caught her eye. Wow, was that really happening? Danny recognized that woman with long pink hair. Ju Hyunju turned to look at who was behind her. Our protagonist friendly approached Ju and asked the woman what she was doing there. Without paying much attention to Danny, the woman replied that she had an appointment with the general manager of the departments. And then, she remembered, the socialite asked if Danny and she had met at the book launch a few weeks ago. The two women stared at each other for a few moments, and Ju asked if she worked there. Ju declared that Danny looked so sloppy that she barely recognized her. That comment left our protagonist devastated. She asked who the rich girl was calling sloppy, but before it turned into an argument, Junkang appeared. Ju gave him a huge smile and openly ignored Danny, which made the girl even more irritated. Jun invited the woman to talk in his office. Apparently, he could see through her good person disguise. Ju still had time to cast a slightly malicious look at Danny while entering Junkang's office. What a nasty little woman. Danny looked at her very annoyed. Jun looked at his girlfriend for a few moments. He touched her shoulder. The manager asked her to be kind to Ju, and above all, not to pick any fights with her. Soon after, Danny was left alone in the hallway. He gently touched the glass. Junkang sighed in relief because that situation could have turned into something even worse. Ju declared that she had gone up to the general department's floor. She said she was surprised to learn that he was working downstairs with the other employees. The executive explained to her that he planned to work there until the launch of the next brand and that the next team could take over with more autonomy. She picked up the coffee cup. Ju asked if the blonde girl from earlier was really his girlfriend. It must be nice to see her so often, since the two of them worked on the same floor. Jun listened indifferently and did not react. He began to sketch a response, but ended up asking if Ju would like sugar. Ignoring the question, Ju gossiped that she had heard the girl was quite strange. How could Jun accept that? The woman said with a certain irony that she heard rumors that Danny really liked chicken soup. Jun asked what she could possibly be talking about. Then, he soon remembered the terrible day at the restaurant when Danny caused a scene on purpose. The executive explained that it was just a joke. Ju asked if that was really true. He asked if she would be free for dinner tomorrow. Meanwhile, in the office, Danny typed vigorously. She was furious because Ju had picked a fight with her, and June simply told her to endure it. Were they making fun of her? The girl was not willing to simply let it go. Suddenly, someone called her. One of the employees called her. He seemed like a very serious man. Danny greeted him and set aside the intrusive thoughts. The man handed her a clipboard, explaining that there were some documents that needed the general manager's approval. He asked her to review the papers before asking for Junkang's signature. The employee also asked if Ms. Ju had already arrived, and Danny confirmed that yes. He was sure that Ju had been rude to Danny, and that was why the girl must be having a difficult day. Then the guy revealed that Ju was like an older sister to Jun. She was an heiress and also a socialite of the great Seongdo department store. Since the two were from very prestigious families and lived close by, they became friends from an early age. Danny heard him say that Junkang and Ju Hyunju grew up like family. The man explained to our protagonist that, since Ju was an only child, she and the general manager were very close. He also said that she was a little rude sometimes, so Danny should not take it to heart. After he left, Danny kept thinking about what she had discovered. She wondered what kind of sister could be so cruel as to pick a fight with her brother's girlfriend. Did she not approve of Danny as Junkang's girlfriend? Then, someone nudged her. Our protagonist raised her head and noticed that her boyfriend was behind her. He then told her that he needed help with fieldwork and asked her to follow him. Danny was confused by that strange request. What could it be about? The afternoon was calm in the office. Junkang approached. Danny asked what kind of fieldwork he could be talking about. He gave her a threatening look, as if telling her to just follow him. Then the girl began gathering her items to put them in her bag. That caught the attention of other employees in the office. She wondered where Jun had gotten that idea from. It seemed like just an excuse to take her out of the office. Danny thought he was going to scold her because of Ju Hyunju. Inside the car, Danny asked June why she was being reprimanded after everything Ju had said. Our protagonist thought the socialite had gone way too far. Suddenly, Junkang tapped on the window a few times. Outside the car, he asked if she was going to get out or not. She got out of the car and came across something grand, a huge department store. She asked if their fieldwork would be there. Junkang explained that they had not gone there to shop and asked his girlfriend to follow him. Danny thought that of all the places in the world, did it really have to be that one? In the big Seongdo group stores. She hurried to keep up with him. Some customers strolled through the luxurious mall. The executive asked Danny what she thought. However, she was distracted. What did he mean by that question? She looked around, trying to understand what vibe the department store gave her. Our protagonist simply replied that the place was pleasant and clean. Would he be satisfied with that statement? Jun told her to forget it because he had asked the wrong person. He gestured that it was nothing. Soon, he explained that he had gone there to get to know the place. Then, Jun said he needed to stop by somewhere. It was a luxurious jewelry store. Danny asked her boyfriend what they were doing there. Jun explained that he needed to buy a gift. Was it a gift for Ju? Inside the box, there was a beautiful white gold bracelet with diamonds. Our protagonist was very impressed by the beauty of the jewel. Wow, me too. It was as if she had never seen something so beautiful in her life. Junkang noticed that his girlfriend was eyeing the bracelet. The man stayed silent for a few moments. He caught her attention. Then he said that if she saw something she liked, he would buy it for her, since Danny was his girlfriend. Danny was surprised by that statement. Sometimes it seemed like she forgot that they had a dating contract. The saleswoman told her to feel free to look around, and Danny did so. The girl thought for a few seconds. She decided that she wanted a bracelet identical to the one Jun was buying. However, the saleswoman said that would not be possible. The woman explained that it was a collection item that was on pre-sale, and they were already sold out. Danny let out a sigh, but she was actually disappointed. Sometime later, Danny was observing something while listening to the saleswoman tell her they had similar products. Jun was smiling as he picked up another gift package. He was very handsome. We really agree. He was a very attractive man. With a feeling of hurt, Danny wondered how Ju Hyunju could be just a sister when Jun Kang was clearly in love with her. She felt foolish, developing warm feelings for Jun at his smallest gestures of kindness. He approached her to talk about a gift. Danny told him to forget it and said she would wait for him at the exit. A little rudely, she told him to finish whatever he needed to do. Jun Kang was very confused by her attitude and wondered what had suddenly made her act that way. Later, at her house, Danny buried her face in her pillows. She was in her bed. The truth was that our protagonist could not hide her frustration. Several thoughts ran through her mind about how Ju was like a sister to Jun, and maybe that was why he could not confess his feelings, and probably why he had invented the dating contract among other excuses. To Danny, it all made perfect sense now why he wanted to arrange a fake girlfriend. Because he liked someone else, logically he would not want to be in a real relationship with someone he did not care about. And so, Danny thought sadly that he should have been honest with her from the beginning. However, she dismissed that thought. They made a deal to act like a real couple, and if her heart fluttered over anything, then she could not blame anyone but herself. Get yourself together, girl, Danny thought. Enough is enough. The girl needed to change her attitude as soon as possible. She was determined not to fall in love with Jun Kang, and she would be capable of doing that. The sunset was very beautiful, orange and purple. The general manager was talking to one of his employees. Suddenly, someone called him. On the other side of the office, he noticed Ju Hyunju. Oh no, what did she want this time? She waved at him with a slight smile on her face. Jun approached, a little apprehensive, and asked what she was doing there. He said he would have come down if she had told him. The socialite asked what was the point of calling him when she could just go straight to his office. Jun asked her to wait for him on the ground floor and said he would get the car keys and come down. The woman simply said that he did not need to hurry. Despite her striking beauty, Ju had a very strange aura. She thought it would be good for her to show up there a few times, or things could get very bad. In the office, some employees had already noticed her presence. Suddenly, she spotted Danny. Her gaze turned dark and threatening. Ju had almost forgotten about her. Then she approached and called the girl. With a mocking expression, she asked Danny if she dressed like that on purpose. The socialite told our protagonist that she looked even more sloppy than the other day. Danny was very offended by the woman's rude words. Oh no, not again. Why did Ju insist on picking on her? Was it because Danny was dating Jun Kang? Trying to change the subject, the girl asked if Ju really cared that much about how other people dressed. Judging by the way she spoke, she was not polite either. But Ju played dumb and said she was not talking to Danny, since she was talking to herself. What a nasty woman. With contempt, she told Danny, "When you see something very strange, it is hard not to look." There was nothing wrong with our protagonist. Danny became furious. How dared she speak to people like that? She stood up from the desk and asked the woman who talks to themselves next to someone's desk while looking them in the eyes. Before the fight got worse, someone interrupted them. Jun Kang approached the two women. Yeah, he looked quite irritated. He turned to Danny and scolded her, claiming that he had already asked her not to cause trouble in the office. Our protagonist felt very sad about his attitude, and then he turned to speak to the socialite. Jun reminded her that he had asked her to wait for him on the ground floor, but she said nothing. He also asked what she was still doing there. Suddenly, the woman grabbed his arm. Jun was surprised and uncomfortable with her gesture. She revealed that she decided to wait so they could leave together. Apprehensive, he told her she should never come back there again. Hours later, a switched-off cell phone was on top of the table. In her bedroom, Danny looked sadly at the phone. Then our protagonist remembered something. She decided to pick up the phone to check something quickly, and she opened the photo social media app. Then Danny started searching for something. After finding the cruel socialite's profile, she scrolled through the photos. In one of the photos, Danny found what she was looking for. There it was, the bracelet that Jun Kang bought at the jewelry store. She collapsed onto the bed in defeat, letting out a sigh of disappointment. But who could have taken that photo? The answer seemed obvious to Danny. Who else could it be? Obviously, it must have been Jun Kang. Danny imagined the two of them in an elegant restaurant, taking pictures like a loving couple. That thought hurt Danny deeply. She did not understand why Ju treated her so badly, if she already had Jun Kang in the palm of her hand. If Danny was just a contracted girlfriend to keep up appearances, it was not as if Jun had any real feelings for her. Still lying on the bed, she decided to put the phone down. However, picking it up again, Danny wondered why she was acting that way. She looked at Ju Hyunju's graceful photos. Then, an idea came to her. Calm down. It is not what you are thinking. She thought she could try making some waves in her hair. It was not a bad idea. After all, a little change could be good. The next day, a girl greeted Danny as soon as her friend arrived at work. She asked if her friend had changed her hair. Our protagonist looked beautiful. The slightly wavy hair suited her very gracefully. Even so, the girl was a little worried because her friend looked a bit pale. Danny confessed that she had slept very little the night before. But the truth we know is that she stayed up late learning how to use a curling iron. She almost forgot a small detail. The girl told Danny that the general manager had asked her to stop by his office as soon as she arrived. The girl did not seem surprised at all. Just thinking about going to see Jun Kang made our protagonist visibly saddened. What would he use to torment her so early in the morning? Danny knocked lightly on the door and went in right after. She asked if he was looking for her. Jun Kang said he wanted to talk to her, so he asked her to come in and close the door behind her. Danny walked into the room and Jun Kang was sitting in his fancy chair. Then the man noticed something about her. That sudden realization made him blush. So cute. There was something different about the girl. Her face looked a little pale and her hair was slightly wavy. Danny asked if it looked very bad. Jun tried to change the subject, asking if she was sick. She simply replied that she had not slept very well the night before. With a slight smile, the executive asked if she had stayed up all night watching idol videos again. Danny was not a child anymore and should not let those things affect her condition at work. Our protagonist became furious and repeated once again that she was fine. Jun said that he was relieved then. He informed the girl that she needed to attend the company's anniversary ceremony next week. She was quite surprised by the invitation. The man explained that this was the reason he had called her into his office, so she could see his schedule in advance, since he should do things her way, right? Danny was even more surprised to see the change in his behavior. Where was that spoiled guy she knew? She became angry again, saying that regardless of his schedule, she would not attend that event. Jun covered his ears while she shouted that there was absolutely no way she could attend a company event as the general manager's girlfriend. He asked what the problem was with that. Danny asked how she was supposed to keep working there after everyone found out. Jun said that was the reason she worked at Grupo Cho. That answer caught our protagonist off guard. She said his argument was true, but reminded him that he once mentioned that making things public was not really his style. Jun listened as Danny explained to him that they were not married and were not going to be. So why should she appear in public as his girlfriend? What would happen when he married someone else? She did not want rumors about her. He was stunned by the girl's arguments. Already spiraling into madness, Danny began narrating a future rumor people would spread about the time the manager brought his ex-girlfriend to a grand event, and how his future wife would be very sad when she found out about it. Then her drama was interrupted by Jun clapping his hands. He asked what she was trying to say with all that. In the end, Danny simply asked not to attend the event. She begged him not to force her to go. Surprising the girl, Jun said he understood how she felt. Danny was in shock, thinking it had been too easy to convince him. Meanwhile, Jun discreetly noticed her hair. Finally, he asked her to go back to work, but before she left, Jun said he had a small gift for her. Danny took the bag, a little surprised. While holding a small box in her hand, the girl asked what it was. He said that if she was curious, she should just open it. Danny opened the small jewelry box. Inside it, there was an elegant pair of earrings made of white gold and diamonds. Wow. Our protagonist was really not expecting that. Jun explained that since she had not chosen anything at the store, he took the liberty of picking a gift for her that day. He thought those earrings would look very beautiful on her. Now that she had opened the box, it would be good for her to try them on. Danny put on the earrings. They really looked very beautiful on her. The delicate jewelry lit up her face. Jun was impressed seeing her like that. With a smile, he thought she looked more beautiful than he had expected. He complimented Danny's new hairstyle, declaring that it looked very good on her. She stepped away from him, claiming that he did not need to flatter her. The girl knew that if she thought about it carefully, it was probably the salesperson who had chosen the earrings. Our protagonist thought it was as if he had thought about her while choosing them. She wondered why he was smiling like that. Danny felt a little distressed because of the thoughts running through her head. Our protagonist thanked him and immediately ran out. Jun could not hear what she had said before leaving. Had she not liked the gift? Her reaction had been very so-so. He could see her at her desk. Danny looked at herself, her cheeks very flushed. Jun Kang smiled. She really seemed to have liked the gift and maybe had just felt shy. The following week, the company's anniversary event was about to begin. One of the managers was giving a speech with a microphone. Danny and Sujin were with the other employees. The black-haired girl commented that he was one of the most important managers of Grupo Cho. She thought she would see someone like him on TV. Sujin also commented that given the size of the event, she was happy to be part of such a big company. Danny said she did not find it impressive, but if a celebrity showed up, she would think it was spectacular. Her friend became very curious, and then Sujin revealed that Ju Hyunju was right behind them. Danny froze at that information. She did not even want to know. But suddenly, the woman was alone, which was strange for a figure like her. The two girls wondered if she was already leaving. Suddenly, they saw Ju Hyunju talking to the general manager. That made Danny a little jealous. After all, what could the two of them be talking about? Were they together? There in the large hall, many people could be heard talking. Sujin noticed that her friend seemed to be very close to Junkang. She asked if the last time Danny had not spent some time in his office. Overflowing with curiosity, the girl asked if Danny and Jun were dating. The two would make a beautiful couple. Truly, they were both very intense. Sujin asked what Soo Hyunju ate to look so wonderful like that. Danny remembered the last event she went to with her contract boyfriend, and she could barely stand in high heels. But the socialite was so elegant, so natural, like a true princess. Compared to her, Danny felt like a kitchen maid pretending to be a princess for just one night, and she had only managed that with the help of Junkang's magic. Sujin noticed that her friend had become very sad and asked what was going on. Suddenly, something surprised the two girls. It was manager Michael Seo from Grupo Cho's HR. The handsome blonde man politely waved at Danny and Sujin. He had a charming smile and asked if they were finding the event boring. The planning team had been bold in sending the newbies this time. The black-haired girl replied that she had volunteered, because maybe that way she would catch the chairman's attention. However, Danny did not seem excited at all. Michael said that there were so many guests there that he could barely find the other colleagues, let alone the chairman. Sujin understood that maybe that was why the more senior employees had skipped the event. Out of curiosity, Danny asked him what he was doing at that ceremony. A little awkwardly, he replied that he was the only person available on his team. He stepped closer and asked Danny why she seemed so sad. He even invited her to step out and maybe grab a snack. Danny apologized and explained that she had just been deeply lost in her thoughts. Michael confessed that when they were there applauding so many people, all kinds of thoughts went through his head as well. When Sujin mentioned Ju Hyunju, Michael seemed surprised to hear the socialite's name. He asked if she was working there now. Danny's friend explained that she was right beside the general manager, Jun Kang. Soo Hyunju looked especially elegant at that event. Sujin explained that she was a socialite heiress and influencer and must be there to show her support for the event. To everyone's surprise, Michael made a striking comment. He revealed that he thought Danny was much more beautiful than that socialite Soo Hyunju. Our protagonist was very surprised by the compliment. She asked him not to joke with her, but Michael was being serious. Suddenly, Jungkook turned to look at them. He wondered who that guy talking to Danny was. Before he could return, a staff member informed the executive that he should go up on stage as soon as the presentation video ended. The staff asked Jun to follow him. One of the managers took the microphone. Then the presentation began. The lights went out, and Danny heard the man declare that everyone would watch a video in honor of Grupo Cho's 52 years. However, a small technical problem occurred, delaying the video and the lights remained off. From afar, Danny located Jun Kang. He seemed a little nervous and even uncomfortable, constantly adjusting his tie. Danny wondered, could he be feeling unwell? Then she remembered a very important detail. A few nights ago, he had revealed to her that he had been locked in the art basement for an entire night, and since that day, he did not like dark and very open places. Danny became very worried about her boyfriend. Junkang raised his hand. He held his own face. He was already very distressed and did not know how long he would be able to endure staying there. Suddenly, someone grabbed his hand. Jun was a little startled. Danny approached him and said everything would be fine. The girl asked if he was okay. She remembered that he had asked her not to tell anyone about his story. Danny gently held his hand and caressed it, asking him to calm down and take deep breaths with her. Jun was very surprised to see her being affectionate with him, asking if he was feeling better. That left him speechless. Her hands tickled his. Finally, they managed to play the video and the event continued. Danny and Jun listened as the screening began. Without letting go of his hand, our protagonist said she would return to her seat, since he was feeling better. However, surprising our dear Danny and leaving her all flushed, he asked her to stay a little longer there with him. The rumors were true. The two made a beautiful couple. So cute. Then our protagonist decided to ask him something. Danny said she had noticed that Ju was wearing the bracelet Jun had bought that day and wanted to know if he had given it to her especially for the event. Jun explained that they had not gone together. The executive revealed that he did not give the pair of earrings to Danny simply to ask favors from her. He asked her if she had any idea how much those earrings had cost. The girl had no idea. She only knew they had cost a lot of money. Then, Jun confessed that the price had 7 zeros. That information left Danny distressed. Did you notice that they had not let go of each other's hands? Our protagonist asked her boyfriend if that was how rich Korean families played with their money. He laughed and replied that he had not bought them just because of the money. Danny was very shocked by the supposed value of the earrings. While he smiled at her, the girl wondered for what other reason he would buy something so expensive. Danny asked if he was trying to win her over to get something. That did not seem to be the case. Jun remembered seeing her very happy looking at herself in the mirror, admiring the gift. Before their conversation could continue, the host interrupted them, apologizing for the small delay. Junkang held Danny's hand while the man announced him as the general manager of Grupo Cho. He gently let go of her hand. Then he walked to the stage, leaving Danny alone. Phew, our protagonist was very relieved to see him feeling better. Sujin appeared out of nowhere, startling her friend, claiming she knew she had a boyfriend but had no idea it was the general manager. The black-haired girl asked how long they had been together. Michael came closer to hear the gossip. While Danny tried to explain herself, from afar, the pink-haired woman stood out in the crowd. She looked at the couple with envy and a certain astonishment, while biting one of her nails. And that's it for today, everyone. Well, I was really curious. I hope you enjoyed the story. What do you think is coming next? What do you think Ju is plotting? Danny saying she wouldn't fall for him? Right after blushing over a towel moment? Girl, be serious. You two are just too cute. Tell me what you thought in the comments. And if you want more, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss any new videos I post. The name of this work is Kissing is a Violation of Contract, and our recap covered up to Chapter 23. Kisses and see you next time.